Josh Hammer, he is the opinion editor of Newsweek. He is the host of the Josh Hammer Show. He is really quite brilliant, one of the leading minds in the conservative movement, I think. Josh Hammer joins us now to tell us what did you find in this decision?
Glenn, great to be back with you on such a momentous and really is emotionally powerful day, honestly. So, look, as you said, this dropped recently. Funny enough, I was in the middle of giving a guest lecture for an organization. I'm on the advisory board of when it dropped. So I barely had any time to kind of skim through here, let alone get to the concurring and dissenting opinions. But it looks like this looks very similar to the draft opinion that was leaked by the Politico story a month and a half ago in early May. And I think those of us who were praying that the 5 justices from this leaked draft majority opinion would have the fortitude to stiffen their spines against this unprecedented assault now know that our prayers were answered, Glenn. That's really my takeaway right now. This looks a lot like the leaked opinion. Justice Thomas and Justice Kavanaugh have some brief concurring opinions, but unbelievable. And really just holding aside the constitutional law stuff for a second here, just speaking as pro-lifers, on a day like today, I think we really just need to pause, and I tweeted this out earlier. We need to just be grateful for our half century of pro-life activist forebears who, this issue could have gone away after 1973. That was a long time ago, 1973. I mean, this issue could have just gone away. We owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to the pro-life moral activists, political activists, and of course, yes, the legal activists who fought day in and day out to make sure that this grave injustice stayed front and center of our national political conscience. And in many days, today is the culmination of a half century of fighting for truth and justice. But in many ways, it's also a new beginning for the pro-life fight as well, interestingly.
How do you mean a new beginning for the fight? I think it's going to turn, I think we're going to see abortion turn even darker in those states that allow it. Is that what you're meaning by this?
Well, look, for a half century now, Roe versus Wade and its progeny, specifically the Planned Parenthood versus Casey case in 1992, they took away from the states, obviously, they arrogated authority away from the states, the ability to attempt to nationally codify one view of the morality of abortion. It happened to be a profoundly immoral view. So the fight now shifts to the states. And the pro-life activists in all the 50 states, especially obviously in red states, purple states, admittedly some blue states like New York and California probably won't be able to touch them there. But we have to make sure that our side is well positioned in the state capitals for every red, purplish, and probably even light blue state to make sure that we fight for successful, cogent, and morally consistent pro-life legislation. The state of Oklahoma, actually, just north of Texas, where I know you are, Glenn, they've been leading on this, actually. Governor Kevin Stitt signed into law a fantastic pro-life bill there in Oklahoma a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so at this point, that basically just bans abortion straightforward from conception. And there are some, obviously, life of the mother exceptions and so forth, but we really need to start thinking about trying to craft legislation now at the state level. But to your point, yes, I do fear, of course, that blue states will only double down in their radicalism. And unfortunately, that's probably only going to lead to an ever greater divide in our country than we currently have today. But obviously, we're going to save, at the end of the day here, we're going to save millions and millions of unborn children. We are going to save human beings who can grow up to cure cancer, who can win Nobel Prizes. This is just a tremendous win for the human species. I don't really know how to say it than that.
I tell you, I saw the stat that I think it was last year or the year before, 20% of all pregnancies ended in abortion. 20%. Wow. That's a shocking number. And we do have our work cut out for us because I think that these states are going to double down. But I think, God doesn't waste anything. There is no waste with God. even the worst things that could possibly happen turn out to be something good. You know what I mean? You're like, holy cow, how did that just happen? And I think that evil is going to fully come unmasked. I mean, I'm telling you, Josh, I don't know how you feel about this. I think this could be the day of America's crystal knock. I can see these pro-life centers being burned to the ground today. They're calling for a night of rage around the country. I mean, I think evil is going to show itself, and that'll scare the American people, hopefully.
You know, I've been thinking about this a lot this week, actually, because I've been bracing for kind of a new George Floyd Summer of Love kind of thing happening this summer, coming to a city or a suburb near you, unfortunately, myself. Look, I live in Florida, Glenn. I know you live in Texas. It is a moment like this where I do think that where you live matters, and who your mayor is, who your governor is, matters, because law and order and, you know, rioting and anarchy is not really a federal issue. I mean, it is to a limited extent. I mean, in June 2020, Tom Cotton wrote this op-ed that was pretty controversial at the time. I happen to agree with it, where he said, quote unquote, send in the troops. And there is some federal legislation from the Reconstruction era that would justify that. But most kind of quelling and quashing of anarchy does happen, constitutionally speaking, at the state and local level. So at a moment like this, where I fear that you are probably not wrong, I take some solace that Governor DeSantis is my governor. I think Texans, you know, should take some solace that they are represented by a Republican governor and state legislature there as well. So I fear that you are right. I pray, obviously, that no one is harmed. I mean, I fear, though, that is something bad is happening. And at the end of the day, of course, that does not mean the justices cannot do what they are supposed to do. So thank God they did that.
So, Josh, have you looked into what the White House has been saying? The White House yesterday, in fact, I think, do we have a clip of this, what the White House said yesterday about the guns, and then they were turned to the SCOTUS ruling for Roe versus Wade? Do we have that, please?
Will the president accept this decision as legitimate, even if he disagrees with it?
It's going to come from the Supreme Court, so it's going to be a decision that we certainly are going to respond to. So I'll leave it at me. It's just like any other Supreme Court decision, just like the one that they did today on guns.
So the White House won't say that they're going to accept it, which I don't think they will. They're talking now about taking doctors and moving them into places like Oklahoma or Texas, where abortions will be outlawed, and putting doctors on our military bases to perform abortions. I mean, where does this go when you have a government that is in defiance of one branch of the government?
So there's a lot to unpack here. So we should start from first principles. The idea of judicial supremacy, and this is a peculiar thing to say on a day like today, where such a pro-life victory has happened, admittedly. But if we're going to be intellectually consistent here, the idea of judicial supremacy, the idea that the justices have the sole and exclusive ability to interpret the Constitution for themselves, and no other constitutional actor in Article 1 or Article 2, let alone the states, has the ability to independently interpret it, that is erroneous. In fact, actually, it was really Abraham Lincoln, actually, who in the Dred Scott case famously opposed judicial supremacy and flouted the Dred Scott ruling, at least as it pertained to everyone other than Dred Scott himself. So I have actually argued in formal legal scholarship and in a law review article, actually, that the Lincolnian view of how each branch of government should interpret the Constitution for itself in its own ambit is correct. Having said that, there is a thing called prudence, and there's a thing called comedy. And in a moment like today, when it really does look like, and I agree with you, that we are now bracing for riots through the streets, when the political rhetoric is at DEFCON 1, when people are trying to assassinate Supreme Court justices, I think it would be, at a bare minimum, a profoundly imprudent act for the Biden administration to try to undermine this ruling. Now, what they might do is they might try to kind of issue some kind of limp executive orders or issue some regulations that might try to kind of undermine it at the edges here. But at the end of the day, the idea that this returns to the states, there's not really a whole lot they can do about that. I mean, basically, at this point, if red states throughout the country, Kentucky, West Virginia, Kansas, whatever, if they want to go ahead and ban abortion, what can the Biden administration literally do about that? I mean, short of sending in the National Guard to protect Planned Parenthood if the state legislature of Kentucky goes ahead and bans it, there's really not a whole lot they can do. And it's very difficult to envision a world in which the Biden administration literally sends in troops to red states to protect Planned Parenthood if that state legislature goes ahead and bans it. So practically speaking, this is like a lot of tough talk and rhetoric. This obviously is a campaign year in 2022. So there's really not a whole lot that practically speaking they can do to actually prevent red and purple states from enacting pro-life legislation.
I'm glad to hear that. I know that they have been working on things. I mean, he has said, there's executive orders that I can employ. There are things that I can do. He's talked about a national public health emergency, which I think is crazy. But I would hope that the president would come out today and say, we strongly disagree with this. And you're right. The court is not the end all. But the court did not end abortion. It just said the people should decide. I think that's the best kind of court ruling on any of it. The people should decide what this is and send it back to the states. Josh, I thank you very much. Appreciate your time. There was another ruling that came out today. Was it important?
Oh, no. I mean, in comparison to this, total nothing burger. It was like a 5-4 decision on something Medicare reimbursement related. So it's a real nothing burger, honestly.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Josh. Josh Hammer, opinion editor for Newsweek and the host of The Josh Hammer Show.
If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to our channel so you'll be sure to see similar videos from BlazeTV with the added bonus of signaling YouTube that your voice and opinion still matters. And if you're looking for more great conservative content, check out one of the 2 videos suggested here.